The Replacement for the Defective Winter by Joel Enos. Mother had left the house once, Carol said. It did not go well, and she was very ill upon her return. Still, Mother maintained it had been worth the journey because it was during that trip that she met Robert. These days, Mother was usually nothing more than a disembodied voice that rang out through the halls without warning. She had her rules, Mother, and she and Robert both had methods of enforcing those rules, even though corporeality was not Mother's strong suit and Robert's health was now frail. When Lydia was younger, she dreamed of going to school and being with other children, meeting teachers, and, for some reason, having ducks to take care of in her classroom. But when it came time for Lydia to be in school, she learned that she would be homeschooled, like Carol. It was easier, Robert claimed, than trying to explain their particular domestic situation to teachers and school psychologists who might not understand. Robert and Mother had decided to keep Carol a complete secret years ago for the same reasons, back when Carol was tangible, before the last winter came. At first, Lydia was disappointed to be home all the time, but Mother, Robert, and Carol kept her so busy that, after a while, she no longer dreamed of school or teachers. She enjoyed the home and yard surrounded by static haze and hills on all sides. In some ways, Lydia realized it was a relief. Lydia was a bundle of nerves when she ventured out these days, taking on some confusing task from members of her family who couldn't or wouldn't. When she was younger, the world seemed exciting and full of life, but as she became more responsible, she began to see what Carol meant when she said that the thrill of adventure, of being outside, quickly gives way to exhaustion and confusion after any given amount of time was actually out in it. Staying at the house was just easier for people like them. Lydia had once considered Carol and Mother to be somewhat broken, unable to function. She saw herself as the capable one, above the rest of her family in some way. But now she saw that she was more than likely just as defective. Outside was terrifying, loud, nonsensical, and dangerous. At the house, there was a pool, clear, blue, warm, even in winter, and Lydia loved her family, which by then also included Nami. Nami lived in the pool house. She may have been there for a while, but Lydia had only discovered Nami recently, since she usually avoided the pool house and its strange electronic hum. Lydia had been taking a rare moment to herself, outside the house but still inside the boundary that included it. She was sitting by the pool, still in her skirts, with her feet just barely in the water, when she noticed a flickering light coming from the pool house. The regular sounds of electricity emanating from the pool house were one thing. She was used to those. But the fractal disturbance was new, and she felt that, as it was her job to protect the family from such things, she should investigate. And so, she met Nami. "Have you been here long?" Lydia asked her. "I have only just arrived, but I do not know how long it has been," responded the flickering Nami. Lydia could just make out a form in the light. Nami was very different from Carol or Mother, both of whom also had some trouble maintaining solid form, but for very different reasons, of course. Mother being too old for such things, and Carol for pure lack of interest. Nami seemed to have very long hair and very black eyes. But other than that, Lydia could only see light. "Are you the replacement?" Nami asked Lydia. "I might be," Lydia said, which was true. "I fear that I may need something." Nami's voice crackled. "When you know what it is, You just tell me, and I can get it for you," explained Lydia. "You are allowed to venture out?" asked Nami. "I am," admitted Lydia, "though I don't like it, and I go out less and less now. I didn't know the replacement could come from outside." "I don't know if it can, really," answered Lydia, and it was true. She had always been able to go out of the bounds of home, but as she grew older, she was not allowed to as often. She did not know if she was of the house, or simply at the house like Robert, though the older she got and the more she learned about the job she was being trained to do, she'd begun to assume that she had indeed been created at the house. She supposed she could ask her mother, but Mother usually ignored such queries about the past, preferring to talk about Robert and how he kept Mother alive in the world outside for so long. "You do understand that we can't be without him," Mother had said more than once, referring to Robert. "I understand that is true, but I do not understand why," Lydia had once responded. Mother was quiet, not the kind of quiet that sometimes scared Lydia into running outside where Mother could not follow, but the kind of quiet where Lydia knew that no explanation was to come. The dark form that was Mother took up a small residence somewhere in the back of Lydia's mind and curled up silently with the smoky, cloudy form of Carol and took a long nap. Even though she was afraid of Mother and often annoyed by her, Lydia did miss her when she slept. A year or two without Mother was often confusing, though during that particular time she did have Nami to look after, and it took only a few weeks for Nami to know what she needed and what to ask for. When Mother and Carol finally awoke, so much time had passed that Lydia had moved Robert, who could no longer move of his own volition, having become so weak, into another room in the house. Robert now rarely spoke. Anderson had moved him into the bedroom next to Robert's for convenience. Lydia had given him strict instructions, but it was hard to understand if Anderson followed them, or if he was helping Robert at all. Anderson was a new type. Lydia had learned a lot from him about the world outside that she now rarely saw. Anderson gleamed with a brushed silver shine, and he twitched oddly at times, pulsating with bright yellow energy, but always settling back down to a low blue glow. Anderson told her, "It's so beautiful now with all the digital, but also very dangerous for our family." Lydia hadn't been outside in more than a year, and she learned to stockpile what Nami needed. Mother hadn't needed from the outside world in an awfully long time. Carol had never had much desire for anything outside the bounds. "Is that why the sky is so different now, so gray?" Lydia asked Anderson. "Sometimes it is so cloudy that I can't see the hills." Anderson just laughed. The noise was disturbing and painful. "I don't think the hills are there anymore," said Carol. "I can't hear them." "They are there," Anderson said, "if you want them to be." "Lydia doesn't want there to be anything," Carol said. "I do too," protested Lydia. "I just don't know what I want." But that was not true. Lydia had decided fairly recently, after taking care of Nami for so long while Mother slept, that she might want to be with the hills that no one could hear anymore. After all, she just didn't want to say it out loud. But because of Mother, Lydia didn't need to say anything out loud. "There's nothing for you out there, Lydia," said Mother. "There's nothing for me here, Mother," cried Lydia. "Who will take care of us?" Carol cried. "Robert is no longer able, and winter is almost over." "I will find someone," Anderson said. "I will put the word out." "What word is that?" Carol was sobbing now. Lydia could hear her voice echo in her head slightly more than usual. The room Anderson was staying in had once been Carol's, but she no longer needed a room. Carol seemed to be just realizing what this meant. "I thought I was going to be the replacement, Mother, but now I see that's just not true. Am I even still in the house?" "Dear Carol," whispered Mother, "you are never going to be the replacement. You are of the house, and you will always be in the house." "Am I of the house, Mother?" Lydia asked. "You, too, will always be of the house, Lydia," answered Mother. "But you do not need to stay here with us any longer. We have Anderson." "Is that why you are here?" Lydia asked Anderson. "It's you? You are the replacement?" Anderson did not answer, but only smiled. "You have given us everything," Mother said. "We do not need it anymore." "But what if there's nothing out there?" Carol cried. "Then I will be nothing," said Lydia. For a moment, fueled by her fears and emotions she did not understand, an image of Carol flickered in front of Lydia and then faded, as if corporeality was imminent, but then ultimately too difficult. Lydia walked out of the door, past the pool house where Nami just stared at her with her black eyes as she floated rainbow flickers like sparks around her alabaster core. "I knew you would leave us," Nami said. "You would have been a terrible replacement." "You are only here because of me." Lydia didn't even look at her. She knew Nami did not mean to be cruel. It was just her way. She was neither cruel nor kind. And now she had no reason to learn to be either. "We will be here after you are nothing," Nami continued. "After winter has returned, and you are no longer and quite forgotten." "I prefer nothing to this," said Lydia, mainly to herself as she walked to the edge of the bounds where things got blurry. Lydia peered through the smoke, trying to see the hills, or the school, or the strange city that Anderson had often described. She couldn't see anything but haze. She looked back at Nami. "I am not the replacement," Lydia whispered to no one in particular, and she again turned to face the outer world. "I am the winter." Lydia stepped into the haze. Joel Enos has written comics, Sonic the Hedgehog, and graphic novels, Ben 10, and published short fiction in Whispers from the Abyss, Visibility Fiction, Theme of Absence, and Flapper House. His comics adaptation of Anais Nien's Under a Glass Bell with artist Fiona Meng was published in A Cafe in Space.